The media is all fired up this week about the staff changes in the White House, but the president is using social media to remind the American people that things aren't as bad as the media makes them out to be. Today, the president tweeted this: stock market could hit all-time high again. 22,000 today, was 18,000 only 6 months ago on Election Day. Mainstream media seldom mentions. Now, every day, the media reports on the chaos in the White House and reports that the end is near for the Trump presidency. But investors aren't buying it. Markets are booming. And that's with no tax relief from Congress. No healthcare repeal of Obamacare, right? Here with me now to break it all down, columnist and radio talk show host Brian Crabtree. Brian, we always love having you. Thank you so much for being with us. Brian, there was a pretty good GDP report just a few days ago that got almost no airtime. The economy grew at 2.6% last quarter, and that's good news compared to previous GDP reports, especially under the Obama administration. But that growth happened without relief from Obamacare regulations and without tax reform. Imagine, and I'd love to even know your predictions of what the GDP report would have looked like if we had some tax cuts.
Yeah, I think this economy would like to be performing at 4%, perhaps even better. And that's been where we've performed in previous recoveries from recessions. Because of the Obama era of regulations, of course, we're still dealing with those things. I think it's been best put this past week as an observation of the stock market that perhaps the stock market over budgeted in anticipation for all the things Trump would get done and severely under budgeted for profits. And that's sort of misleading. I think some of the profits are a result of Trump's policies and deregulation.
Right.
So it's a backdoor way to get in there. So you can't take it away from Trump, but you also have to give it to the companies mutually and equally that they're performing record levels with profits now as well after years of cost cutting. So when you take those two, the optimism into Trump and the profit margins of these companies, you add it with reform and Obamacare and potential tax reform, you could see a massive expansion in this economy. In fact, it's in the cards. The question is, will Republicans get out of the way?
And that sadly is the question, Brian. Will Republicans get out of the way? I mean, we know that Democrats aren't going to play ball. They hate tax cuts, first of all, because they're very dependent on voters being dependent on them for their power and money. So they're not going to play ball. We know this. On health care, they're single payer or bust. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And that's because they're completely married, really, to the elite inside the Democrat Party, who are all strong leftist socialists. And so it puts us in a place where really the president has to carry this water all by himself. You look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average flirting with the 22,000 mark since Trump's election. The stock market are up around 20%. It's funny because investors aren't hearing whatever the media thinks is so important about Russia or about some sort of chaos in the White House. None of those things seem to matter to the people who are actually investing in the American economy. But that in and of itself should send a message to the average Joe that perhaps if they think things are looking up and things are looking good and they might just be okay, it really might be so, right?
Yeah, and you said it correctly. Somehow the CNN nonstop fake stream media coverage of Trump-Russian collusion is not being baked into the stock market at all. In fact, if it's doing anything, it's helping because they don't buy it. They don't think it matters. They know it's normal. They recognize that international dealings require international communication. And that doesn't mean collusion. That means doing deals. And that's how people think when they're investing at big levels in the stock market. And that's, I think, when you look at how the country is reacting from a financial and economic standpoint, there is no lacking of optimism in the deregulation that is to come. And I do think we have a better shot at tax reform than we do the health care reform. But I'm still nervous that we have senators like Susan Collins, John McCain, even Lindsey Graham that won't get out of the way of their own party and let progress occur that they've been promising for the last 7 or 8 years ad nauseum under Obama. That's the real issue here. I don't think Democrats are the problem. They're in the insane asylum, and that's where they ought to stay. And they got the most insane person leading them, and I hope she stays there, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. So I'm not worried about the Democrats. They're just background noise. The problem is the Republican Party. And if you're a conservative, you need to be calling these senators and telling them they're going to get the pink slip if they don't help you get more upward mobility by tax reform, health care, and other issues that they've run on. It's really disappointing at this point. And by the way, I think, make a prediction here, if tax reform goes the way of health care, Trump will start throwing specific congressmen and women and senators under the bus, calling for primary challengers come 2018. That's going to happen if they don't get something done.
See, but I am not sure, Brian, that they're convinced yet that the swamp will really be drained. I mean, the president continues to drain the swamp, but it's my goodness, when you have, and you know how this feels, because everyone's experienced this to some degree, when you have leakers in your own house, I mean, it's like your own family spying on you and then spilling the beans to the press about you, or spinning things that aren't even true about you to the press to make themselves feel important or pertinent in some way that they may not feel anymore. Because, I mean, look, what the president has done is come in to diminish the bureaucracy. So if you are bureaucrat A, right, they've diminished your power. The president has diminished your power. And not only that, if you grew up, you politically grew up in the culture of the DC bubble, all you know is that power and money come from maintaining that elite establishment system that has been so meticulously set up over decades. And this president seems to be dismantling it head on, fearlessly. And so they're going to continue to try to destroy him. And here's the next narrative that's going to come out of the left. So my question for you is, how do we battle back at this? The next narrative that's going to come out of the left is going to be, this only benefits rich guys on Wall Street. This doesn't benefit you, Brian Crabtree, or me, Gina Lauda. This only benefits the rich elite, and these are Donald Trump's friends, and he came into the presidency just to line their pockets. What say you?
Let me give you a number, 268 billion with a B dollars. Most of it parked overseas. Which companies? No, Apple. Why? 35% corporate taxes. You think they build some Macs, maybe some iPhones in America if they could repatriate, I don't know, $100 billion at 15%. That's what invigorates the economy. You add that up with all those companies, it's 2 to 4 trillion with a T.
Wow.
Trillion
That's
dollars.
a lot of jobs. Brian, I got to let you go. We're out of time. Thanks for being with us. Stay tuned. More America Trends coming at you.